Mr. Chairman, friends, what I want to speak about is one of the major topics that IRA has upon itself to deal with during the Greek chairmanship and before that, and probably after that as well, namely the question of denial and distortion of Holocaust memory. Now, what does denial mean? Denial means to say that there was no Holocaust, that Nazi Germany never intended to annihilate the Jewish people, that there were never any gas chambers, that the number of victims was relatively small and only the result of the war. That's denial. In 1999-2000, a trial took place in London of the Holocaust denier, British Holocaust denier David Irving, against Deborah Lipstadt, a major researcher of the Holocaust and a major academic in the United States, who had charged David Irving of being an anti-Semite and denying the Holocaust and so on. And Irving took her to court for slander. The result of that trial was that the British judge, Sir Charles Ray, decided that David Irving was a liar, an anti-Semite, not really an academic, not really a historian, and that the Holocaust had taken place. There was no argument about that. After that defeat of denial in the West, and by West, I suppose I mean United States, Canada, South America, Britain, Europe, maybe Japan, the denial, open denial, still exists, and it's very dangerous. But it's becoming more and more of a marginal phenomenon. Holocaust denial exists very strongly in some, by no means all, in some of the Muslim societies that are given to the rule of radical Islam, which is a genocidal ideology which turns against the Jews openly and explicitly and argues that there was never any Holocaust. And those who say there was a Holocaust, they say, we are very sorry that Hitler did not finish the job and we will do that in the future. That is a kind of Holocaust denial that isn't Holocaust denial. It just says that the Holocaust was a good thing and it should be continued. I consider all that under the general heading of Holocaust denial. So it's there, danger. Websites, especially in the United States, but not only there, elsewhere as well, that deal with white racism, that advocate white racism. And the Jews, of course, are an enemy. And the argument that the Jews underwent a major genocide, the major genocide maybe, is something that they reject. The reason for that is the support for the Nazi regime. Nazi regime was a good thing, and the West should have joined it in struggle against the communist Soviet Union, instead of which they joined the Soviet Union against the Nazis, which was a mistake. And therefore, the denial is really connected with a basic, very basic anti-democratic and anti-liberal ideology. Distortion is something else. Distortion does not deny the Holocaust. Yes, the Holocaust happened. It was terrible. And we are against it. We support all kind of memorials. We erect museums. We erect statues. We make wonderful, wonderful, wonderful speeches. We love Jews, especially dead Jews. Live Jews are occasionally a problem, but dead Jews are terrific. And we identify with them. Now, what does that mean? It means the Holocaust happened. It's not a denial, you see. It's a distortion of the past. What do they say? It happened, but not we who did it, whoever the we is. In Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, anywhere else, we did not do it. The Germans did it, only the Germans. We tried to support the Jews, you know. We had problems because the Jews didn't really want to be helped very much. And the Jewish council collaborated with the Germans. And the Jewish police delivered Jews to the German hands. And whatever we could have done, we did. But it was simply impossible. And therefore, we have to review our attitude to what we did in the past. And then comes, of course, the reason for that. The reason is that you have to create a nationalist ideology. Ideology that says we are wonderful people. We did everything in our power to face the German onslaught, to fight against the Germans. We did all the good things. And there were lots and lots and lots and lots of rescuers, many more than Yad Vashem and other organizations recognized. No, there were huge numbers. And very often they were murdered by the Germans when they were discovered. Not only the Jews whom they tried to help also were murdered. And in order to create a national consciousness that we are wonderful, a wonderful people, a wonderful nation, we are absolutely terrific. You have to review and revisit the past. The past, however, is not so simple. Now, of course, the Holocaust came from Germany. No doubt about that. The ideology came from the Nazi Party, anti-Semitism, which was the basis of the Holocaust. Sure. And as the great Holocaust poet, Paul Celan from Bessarabia, from Bukovina actually, said in his great poem in German, Die Todesfuge, that death is a master from Germany. Der Tod ist ein Meister aus Deutschland. Yes, but without the help in every country of Europe except for Albania, of smaller or larger groups of people who collaborated with the Germans against the Jews, or did not do anything to rescue them. Without that, they could not have done it. That's the whole point. And to admit that is very difficult because it is against your interest as a nationalist group that wants to emphasize how wonderful your group is. And so you distort the past. The fact that smaller, larger, or huge groups in the population were anti-Semitic and did not want to help the Jews, or looked aside, knowing very well what was happening to them. To give you one example, obvious example, in Poland there was a tremendous underground that fought the Germans, the Home Army, Armia Krajowa. They knew very well where the trains were going. They knew about the death camps. Not there, and not in France, and not in the Czech Republic, and not in Slovakia. There was, with one exception in Belgium, there was no train that brought Jews for their death in the death camps that was derailed by an underground. Not one. And they knew where they were going. So the past is difficult. And yes, there were rescuers. thousands of them. Yad Vashem has recognized over 27,000 of them. Very strict criteria, and I think there were many more. But, you know, there were 500 million people in Europe at that time. 27,000 is a figure, a great figure. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny proportion in every country. In every country. The heroism of the rescuers is unimaginable. Would you have done what they did? To risk the life not only of yourself, but of your family. And of course, of the people you were trying to save. And you were afraid that your next door neighbor of your own nationality would denounce you to the collaborators or straight to the Nazi Germans. And when you have that situation that is not so great in terms of your past, and there's no exception to that, I say, except for Albania. And Jews were involved in that too, sure. Yad Vashem has published articles about Jewish collaborators with the Germans. Yes, there were such people. Now they were forced, the Jewish council were forced at the threat of death to cooperate, not to collaborate, to cooperate. Nobody has asked the question whether the French and Slovak and Polish and other heads of villages, municipalities, townships, towns, who served under the Nazis, were they collaborators or not? So we have a question of distortion of the memory. Why is that so important? Well, I'll tell you my view. It's so important because it's a moral issue of the first degree. We are living in a period where radical nationalism is a danger to everyone. Distortion of the Holocaust strengthens radical nationalism in all places. It's not only that. Distortion of the Holocaust is the distortion of a central event in human history. What is different between the Holocaust and other genocides? It's the desire, a mythical desire, of the leadership of the Nazi Party, and then of many, many others, not only in Nazi Germany, in other places as well, that the Jews are a satanic group that has to be destroyed physically in an unlimited way. That is something that is totally unprecedented in history. It's not unique. Unique would mean that it can never happen again, but it can, because it was a human action, and all human action can be repeated in one way or another, not exactly the same form, but in one way or another. And so the Holocaust is centrally important, not for the Jews only, but for humanity. For all the 34 governments that are members of IRA, for all the experts, 250 of them usually, who come to our meetings, and for the masses of people who one way or another are connected with us. And we are a minority. We are a liberal minority that wants to say the truth as close as possible. That is our mission. And the only way we can deal with it is to say, yes, distortion is a crime. Distortion is something that we cannot allow. Distortion is something that we have to fight. And we have to fight it with the only way we can, namely coming to the truth as close as possible. We can never say we can never reach the whole truth. It's impossible. but as close as we can make it. And that is a task of IRA. It was the task of IRA before. It is the task of IRA today under the Greek chairmanship. It will be the task of IRA next year under the Swedish chairmanship, and hopefully in the future. We cannot let go. We cannot stop our fight for the truth. We cannot sit quietly. We have to deal what we can. We have to do what we can. And what we can is to teach, to research, to educate, to further our knowledge of what happened, so that similar things will not happen again. It's not a never again, because it's happening all over again. But it's something that we can limit maybe. And IRA has made a decision, an open, official decision, to participate not only in what we are doing, not only the Holocaust and the genocide of the Roma, but also to collaborate in all efforts to limit the mass atrocity crimes that are happening all over the world. It's a constant struggle. It's a struggle that cannot be won 100%, but at least we can limit the damage if we succeed. And that really is my message for this year. Thank you very much.